Hey, it's hot in here.
Yeah, don't take off all your clothes. Right here.
Oh, it's too... I feel better now.
We got a Challenger. Let's take a look inside. So what we have here today is a App Radio 3. We're gonna pull this out and put in his, I believe it's a 41 or a 4200. Let's go ahead and get this dash out and see what it looks like behind there.
I don't know why they
Where is this going? All right, so this is what I was afraid of, this guy right here. So this car requires a smart harness. And for some reason, and they're, I get it, they're kind of expensive. I mean, they're 60 to 120 bucks depending on what you want. This is just some random accessory wire ran off into the car. You don't want to do that in a Chrysler.
It's going all the way back to the car.
What?
Yeah.
So they actually ran this all the way to the trunk of the car.
And it's actually not in that one.
Which one did they jam it into? In the front door? So they just jammed it in. So they just jammed it into a fuse, they didn't use the right one.
And they make a hole.
They made a hole. Oh, that's cool. And then the wire just drapes across. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and go over to the bench and make it look pretty. So to integrate into the factory harness, we're gonna use this guy right here, the LCCH21. Since they were able to use the accessory wire from the trunk to turn on the radio, we know it doesn't have the factory amplifier, so we know it's going to be an 8. We've talked about it before, the 4-8. This one's going to be an 8, meaning that we're going to have front, left, right, rear, all four corners of the car is going to go through this harness. Now, the other thing to keep in mind anytime you're doing one of the LC stands for low cost, is that it has enough current just to turn on the radio. If you're going to try to turn on a backup camera or anything like that, make sure you follow the instructions here. It'll show you how to add a relay. Now, one of the other things we're going to add is this guy right here. This is the cool USB HDMI. This is the HDMI-USB-CBL that PAC makes. It's going to mount where the cigarette lighter goes. Fernando's going to take this from me and run away with that. What we have is it's mounted. We've gone ahead and covered it in the Chinese finger torture. He had asked for a more convenient way to plug in his iPod.
Yep.
And you suggested putting it in the cigarette lighter.
Say he don't need it, he don't smoke.
Yeah.
He just wanted something to charge. I'm like, we can put it there, good to go.
All right, man, you do that.
I'm like, right here.
All right, go get it in the car. This is what we have for his radio that he's giving us. So let's go ahead and just get it apart and see what pieces we have, what we're missing. We'll kind of go from there. It is a 4200, so we do have a wiring harness. It's got wire nuts. So he has his HDMI converter. That's cool. We're not going to need any of this stuff, so we'll set this to the side. And we have a Bluetooth mic. So really the only thing it looks like he's missing is the USB extension, which is okay. We're not going to need that because we're going to do the other USB HDMI combo. So now we can go ahead and get the dash kit assembled. Now that we have the dash kit done, it's time to address the wiring harness. So we're going to use a micro bypass. Let's go ahead and take a look at this harness in case you've never seen one before. Now it has two white ends on it, and those two white ends are for very specific things. The one that has a ton of wiring on it is what goes to this guy here, And the one that has very little wiring on it, this is for if you ever wanted to add steering wheel controls. So if the car has steering wheel controls and you're not buying the all-in-one with steering wheel controls, at a later date, you can add the SWIRC and have steering wheel controls. Otherwise, you can just remove it. Like if your car doesn't have steering wheel controls, there's no reason to keep this in the harness. His car doesn't have steering wheel controls, so we'll be removing it. Now, like I said, if you're gonna add anything other than the radio, it tells you right here, this is an accessory output of 1 amp. It's just enough to turn on the radio, or a relay to turn on multiple things. Now, the one thing that kind of screws with you on this one is this uses a green wire for reverse and a green wire for the positive driver's rear speaker. Now, most radios are a purple-white now, and there is a purple-white in the harness. It's just not used for that. What I like to do is go ahead and depin these 2 wires and switch them so that I don't have that issue. All right, there we go. Now the only other wire in this harness we're not going to use is the red-white. Go ahead and remove that. And now our harness is ready to be put together. Now, if we haven't mentioned it before, even though this doesn't have a factory amplified system, for the smart harness, you want to make sure you hook up the blue-white wire to the radio. So it needs that turn on from the radio for the smart harness to work properly. Alright, so we have the wiring harness done. We have a remote turn on for when he decides to add a sub-amp. Go ahead and put a connector on that to insulate it. And also add a zip tie so it doesn't get caught up in the dash. Alright, so there we go. We can take this over into the car. Oh, enter password. Okay, so turn on cap locks. Press and hold. Click OK. You guys just didn't see that.
You want to have problems with Pioneer again?
What's the weather gonna be like today? Oh, I got no mic. Hello? Hello? No, he needs a new mic. Can you hear me? Alright, so we know it's not the microphone. Because my guess is that this guy is way out of date. I don't know. I think it's up to date. Oh, it's up to date.
It's up to date.
Hello? Hello? Testing? Hello? Oh, we're not even getting the dink. Like, she's not even dinging. She's supposed to go dink. So on his original radio, the CarPlay functionality just was not working. So we're gone ahead and gone with a new radio. What's the weather like today? All right, so we have a working unit now. Cool. We have HDMI. He brought us his 4200 and we installed it and it didn't work. These are things you run into every now and then. But we have a troubleshooting process that we go to. So the first thing we had to do was unlock it. Then we went through a course of things to make sure that it worked. We tried a new mic. The new mic didn't work, but then we paired our phone over Bluetooth and it worked that way, which led us to believe that it wasn't the microphone input because both mics work. We tried to restore the radio. That didn't work. We checked the firmware on the radio to make sure the firmware was correct. It was. Fernando checked the Bluetooth firmware, not that CarPlay needs Bluetooth. That was up to date. So everything was perfect the way it was supposed to be. There was just something wrong with the radio's CarPlay section that wasn't allowing it to communicate with the microphone and allowing Siri to do the little ding sound. So at the end of the day, it's a bummer, but that's the chance you get when you buy something used. He's got a new radio now. Everything works perfect. On to the next one. Oh my gosh, another F150. So what we're gonna put in this guy is an LCQ1, the Pioneer 9605S, and I'm guessing this is what he's using for a subwoofer. I'm not sure about that, it was in the car. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount him back here. we had to get the seat folded down. It folds down on that side because that's where the jack is, but on this side it doesn't fold down. So what we've gone ahead and done is make our own lever here because we know we're gonna have to service it. Let me go around the other side. So what we've done is we've taken a ring terminal. There's this guy right here that moves. We've gone ahead and made the ring terminal so that it's not going to come off, soldered it to a piece of 12 gauge, put a little loop up here that we can hold on to, and now when we fold the seat back up we can just yank on this and it'll unlock the seat for us. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the factory radio to see what the harness looks like, to see if we have one that we can integrate into it so we don't have to cut it. Alright, so we happen to have a harness for the Ford. It's the Car AV model number 12240. So what it is, it's a radio adapter for Ford 2011 Up select models and Land Rover 2011 Up select models. You can get this on Amazon, so go ahead and check out that part, and this will plug right into the back of the Ford radio. We're going to go ahead and remove all this goofy stuff here that we don't need off of here so that we can use it for what we're intending to use it for, but we won't have to cut the Ford harness at all. Alright, so there we go. Now we have a nice T-harness so that we can connect our LCQ1 without having to cut the factory harness. It'll be able to go back to factory, no problem. So we have our 5-channel Pioneer, we have our LCQ1. We're going to mount them something like this in the car to where this amp is going to be upside down because all the power wire is on this side. The power wire is going to go down the passenger side of the car. The signal wire is going to come around and go down the driver's side of the car. More for convenience than anything else. The RCAs are here, which is going to make it a shorter run to the processor. There is a vent right here that we need to leave a provision for, so that's why they're spaced out so far. But let's go ahead and get some plastic cut, get the mount made so that we can start our wiring. Alright, so we have our amp board build. We have the window for the vent. Both amps are mounted. If you flip it up here, you can see there's a hole. This is where the seat bolt comes in, so this basically just locks in through the seat bolt and sticks behind the seat. Let's go ahead and get to wiring this thing. Alright, so we're putting some speakers in the doors. What do we have? We have, these are the factory guys here. Yep. We're going to use the, what are we going to use? This guy here, which is the Metra. Is it a Metra?
That's the Metra.
So we're going to use the Metra, give me the model number.
825606.
Perfect, and what are we putting in?
Full cow.
So those of you not familiar with the integration series, we've done them here before, but basically what you get is a 6x9 and a tweeter. What's cool about these is the crossovers. Open that up for me, will you please, sir?
Yeah, of course.
So the crossovers are specific to each speaker. So you have the tweeter, and then you have another one in there, which is just for the mid-range. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get these mounted in the doors. Awesome. But before we get these mounted in the door, since we have that door off, we're gonna go ahead and test for fake engine noise. On the Fords, it's the front speakers that have the fake engine noise, not the rears. And it's typically the 6-cylinder EcoBoost, which this is. So we're gonna go ahead and hook up our RTA and see if we get any fake growling sound. Let's go look. All right, so what you want to do is shut the doors, roll the windows up, rev up the engine. All right, so for this one, there's no fake engine noise. Let's continue with the install. Like this, it's like this, it's like that, yeah. Alright, so we have the amp rack, just set it back in place. We're going to run the power wire and ground that way. And then of course all the signal and everything is going to come this way, up into the radio. Alright, so we have our T-harness in place. It's all tucked into the dash. We can go ahead and plug in our factory radio now. Down in here is a little drawer. You just want to make sure that there's nothing in the way of it. Any of the wires that you ran got in the way. They don't, so we can go ahead and screw this back in. The noise you hear over there is Fernando finishing running the power wire. You doing fun? Having fun?
Yep. This is like a party.
We're just gonna clip this in place for right now, and then we'll put the 2 screws in the top when we're done with everything else. So Fernando just finished hooking up the battery. We're going to turn it on now, make sure we have sound, and then we're going to phase check it and then start with the RTA. So as you can see, this one here is nice and wavy and all that. And what we've come up here is more uniform and flat. Now, this is just the electronic signal. This is just a starting point. This might sound like total garbage when we actually go to listen to it, but we want to get to the flattest response possible before we actually listen to it, so we can then go back and turn things up, turn things down. So this is the front output. We have it, you know, looking pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and switch to the rear channels. As you can see, the rear channel, it looks like it actually has a crossover on it to block the lower end frequency. Take a look. Let's turn this down a bit so they're almost on the same. No, it just needs a bump in the 100. bump this up a little. Well, these are 6.5, so we don't. Yeah, there's definitely some form of crossover going on here, which is fine because, like I said, this is a 6.5, so we don't need it to play down to 80 hertz. It's a factory 6.5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You got more.
Definitely has more bass. All right, so what the audio control does is it takes whatever's coming into channel's rear and passes them through to the sub channel. So in this case, the rear of the radio seems to have some form of a low pass crossover on it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and pull this apart. We're gonna put it back to independent input, and then we're gonna run jumpers off of the front inputs into the subwoofer so that we can get the better signal coming into the subwoofer. All right, that looks a lot better. Definitely we have a bump in the bass here. Go ahead and turn it down slowly. I wanna see if we can find a dip. All right, turn it up. Do we know? Give me numbers.
19.
Keep going. 20.
21, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. It's all the way up.
All right, well, it looks like the subwoofer actually moves up pretty well with the rest of the sound. Go ahead and turn it down again to like halfway. I want to see how well it moves.
28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 20, 19, 18,
All right, that's good.
17.
So what we're looking at is this line right here is moving up uniformly, meaning this isn't dipping off at all. So that means that we really don't need a lot of AccuBass. We can actually use the AccuBass for a bass boost if we want, but we don't need to because the Pioneer amp actually already has that. So what we want to do is just kind of level this off a little bit. It's a little hot. He only has the little tiny 6.5, so we're not going to need it to be crazy amounts of bass. We just need some bass. All right, so I think that looks good. So let me just check the rear, make sure nothing got bumped. Front looks good. Rear looks good.
Don't let nobody